Okay, so welcome again. Thank you for taking the time out of your morning to be here. We are going to be recording the main room of this session, and as a team, we'll be managing the chat. So please feel free to unmute if you have a question or comment, or of course, use the chat for any questions or thoughts if that space is more comfortable for you. So just go ahead in the chat if you could share your name, district, and your role. We'd love for you to check in. So as you're doing that, I think, it's a good place to start to think about why we're here, as, things have sort of shifted with our data work right now. So with the increased pressure for accountability in education, the county and through the collaborative, have responded by providing access to more systems and data platforms to help support our students and the initiatives that we have going. Since we now have many systems that we are just beginning to get off the ground, we may or may not be using them on a regular basis or even know all the functions that these platforms provide. And as we know, and that's why we're all in this room right now, is that data is an effective tool and a powerful catalyst for change within schools. But data can only help us, the right data to inform a specific challenge, to make effective change if we actually use it. So with this secondary data analytics work group, we wanted to create a space to focus on developing more data wisdom. So data holds the power for building pathways, as we know, to better futures, and this group will use data for learning rather than judgment. Oh, sorry, backwards. Okay. So we want to be able to create agency here. We're going to use this platform for learning, evolve as based on the needs, and that's why we need you in the room and in the conversations, and really a place to look at things and reflect and inform our local practices. So that is the hope as we move forward with this work. As a group, we will take this time to consider what data does and does not show. We will consider data in the larger social context in promoting equity in our schools, and look at past experience and trends in our students' lives to thoughtfully plan for the future. So really, this group's goal is to be able to connect our schools' data back to what is truly at the heart of what we do. And we're all here and in education, as we know, to improve the futures of the students we support. So in an effort to build community today, we are going to go into some breakout rooms for about 6 minutes, and we're just asking that you share a data success story. If you could share an example of when your districts use data to really dig in and make measurable changes to your system, just a short little opportunity to share, that would be great. So Heather's going to put us in to some breakout rooms. It looks like everyone's heading back to this main room right now. So is there any group that heard something or wants to share something, if you have an example of something that you guys have done in your district where you have used data, sort of that success story? So just unmute and maybe share. Oh, she got kicked out.
I'll share real quickly, Lori.
Okay.
So in Farmersville, I told our breakout room I was hired last year as a CT coordinator. It's the first time, it was a newly created position. One of the first things I did was look at the number of completers that we had in previous years and concentrators, and realized that there was a low number. So we looked at the course sequencing, and we had to go through and resequence all of our pathways, make sure there was proper sequencing of the courses, make sure they were coded correctly in ARIES with correct state course codes. And so with that, we should increase our number of completers this year. And in the presentation to the board, we emphasized that it would be at least a 2 to 3 year process before we saw significant changes. But just simply looking at the data of completers and resequencing our courses, that's how we use data in our district.
That's a great example. Thank you for sharing, Ed. Anyone else have a share they want to put out there?
Chair, Cutler Rossi. We at Cutler Rossi for the past 3 years have been working in partnership with UC Merced to try and increase the number of students proficiency in math. And so over the past 3 years, we've used multiple measures, PSAT data with our middle school, and local measures, benchmark measures in math, and then also the CASP. And we've been identifying students to strategically target after school interventions, Saturday workshops, and summer workshops. And we're happy to report that in year 3, our 8th graders who are now moved into being freshmen at Cutler Rossi, we have 2 cohorts of incoming freshmen that last year took Math 8 as a 7th period and a Math 1 as an 8th period. And they took part in after school and Saturday workshops. And we have 2 cohorts as 9th grade students in Math 2. And so we're hoping to now have that system in place at the middle school by continuing to offer those workshops and looking at the multiple measures, targeting students, and opening it up to all of our students to be able to attend those additional supports. And we have found that by implementing those practices and also ensuring that we keep track of where the kids are, that students will achieve if in fact you increase that rigor of level of expectation.
And those are both great examples of just systems changes and really being able to utilize the data. And we're hoping this space is going to be able to help for all of us to have those conversations and make those changes in our districts. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Javier. We're going to dig into some core.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So, thank you, Lori, for taking the first wave, and thank you all for being here. And thank you, Ed and Lisa, for sharing those stories. I think we'll get a chance to kind of call back to some of that actually a little bit later. So Lori, Heather, and I have kind of joined you guys on an ongoing journey. And one of the things that we've had to a chance to participate with a little bit more extensively is the onboarding of the core dashboard. It has been kind of a long road to get here, getting everybody's data uploaded. And now it's a matter of like, all right, so how do we get this into the hands of the people in our districts? How do we make sure that people know how to use this? So we'll have some questions for you at the end, but we wanted to take a chance to examine a little slice of the tool a little bit more in depth today. And so, and not just kind of play around with that tool, but does this fit anywhere in our system? Like where in our system would this be useful? What question does this help us answer? Whose hand does it need to be put into? Who else needs to see this? So hopefully, as we kind of play around with one of the 2 tools we're going to explore today within the core dashboard, we'll also be having an opportunity to talk to each other about, all right, like given our context and given the work that we're doing, like, does this help us do anything? So with that, and before we jump into that, we wanted to give you guys a quick little update on upload status. So many of you guys are done, like 1920 files are in. There is a request that came up a few, like maybe 2 or 3 months ago from core to like, now that SIRS files are a little bit more robust, for those to be added in as well. Appreciate those of you guys who have had an opportunity to upload those. I think eventually the thought is to navigate more towards that, but as they're building out their toolkit to take what's in those files, and as they learn what's in those files, there's going to be more to come. There are, though, a few things that we want to bring to your attention. I think Heather sent out like a lot of emails, and some of you guys are probably like, oh yeah, I've seen those. But there is in the agenda an uploading status report that you can open up and take a look and find your district and look at all the years that are there and then see which boxes are unchecked, which could be for a number of reasons. Like a lot of the SIRs are blank just because that was added later. 1920 for a few of you guys are blank just because that hasn't been started yet. And occasionally there's files that have been misnamed or the wrong format or just overlooked. But for the most part, we have some pretty complete files. We get a lot of feedback from core about just how responsive our group is. Okay, thank you.
If I could just jump in for a second.
Yeah.
If, as you're looking at this spreadsheet, you may see a file that you know that you have loaded, but if it is highlighted yellow, that means that it is not in, it has not been accepted. And if you have loaded it before, then they need you to load it again. So anything that is highlighted in yellow is missing, regardless of if you've loaded it previously. So please upload those again. And if there is a file that is highlighted yellow, but the box is also checked, that means that at the moment, core is having an issue with their loaders. So they're working on getting that fixed. So those files have been submitted, they have been received, they just haven't been able to be uploaded into core system yet. They're hoping that once they get that fix in, it'll just be able to sweep in all those files that have been uploaded so far. Hopefully we won't have to come back to you guys and ask you to load them again. They've told us that that shouldn't be the case, but I just wanted to highlight those specific files so that we all know that, you know, these are in, but there is an issue with them at the moment. So again, just to reiterate, anything that's yellow, please upload that.
Heather, quick question.
Yeah.
This is also being shared with the data work group, right?
Right. Yes.
Because a lot of those people in that group are the ones that should be getting this information from our team.
Yes. And this spreadsheet is current as of now. And Doug is asking what the SIRS file is. That's a new file in Tom's, and it includes basically all assessment data, CAS, LPAC, interims, everything. And it's a new file that core is asking for. So in the uploading resources, that folder that we've shown you all repeatedly, there's a new step-by-step guide for how to access SIRS and how to extract those files.
One thing we've been doing for some of our newer districts that have added, and we have 6 new ones, is we've tried to implement like an office hour format so that if the data person has a question, they can kind of come and find us. For the first time we did it, we basically were on a Zoom call like all day with people kind of hopping in and out. And so we can, the next time we have one, we can inform your data folks if they still have questions to see if they might want to hop on and pose a question. But we generally right now are kind of hosting those every time we have like new districts that have like a big upload to do, just because it's a big, hairy thing right up front.
I'm putting a link to the uploading resources folder into.
Any other questions about data uploads? All right. Another reason to kind of entice folks to move on this sooner rather than later is core is actually working on some additional LEA specific analyses. One of the things that they're really working on is specifically this year, because there is no CAS data to report out. Obviously the dashboard, the California school dashboard is going to look very different this year. Is they're trying to give reports that give you the during the school year ongoing like what's happening with the data as it comes through. 3 of the districts that we have here, I believe, have already uploaded their assessment data, whether it's iReady or Renaissance Star or the MAP from NWEA, but they do want to put out a report sometime by December. So that's that's kind of a nice little perk. You probably received an email from Tanira Chu. So if you haven't, you can kind of follow up with us after the meeting. But let's dig into the dashboard and do some exploration. What I am going to ask that you guys do is go to insights.coredistricts.org. I usually have to kind of type that in, like for some reason, like it auto completes to something different and it never comes up for me. But insights.coredistricts.org, if you go there, you all should have a login credential. If you don't remember what your password is, though, you can use the forgot your password protocol. But if you don't even remember what your login is, and like you don't want to bother with that right now, you can absolutely use the generic login TCOE at coredistricts.org with the password core1491. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to go there, log in, and then I will kind of walk you through 2 specific tools. There's a reason that I'm doing 2, which I'll explain in just a second. But I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to see this. Hopefully you guys are logged in.
And the links are in the chat as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Now there's 2 places we're going to look specifically. Obviously, there's the core index, which has like all those numbers and values. This is actually a screen cap that I grabbed from our dashboard. Tulare County typically has about 104,000 students across all of our school sites. Obviously, we have a couple of districts from Kings County as well, but right now, across all the districts that we have in the core dashboard, we have 81,645 students represented for last year, which is a pretty good chunk of our students. There's one of 2 places that I'm going to have you explore. I'm going to show you both of them. And then it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. Some of you guys will have a forced choice because the academic measures are populating for most folks, but not everybody. And so we're going to look at these 2 areas, the academic measures or the on-demand, the metric gap trends. We think those 2 are relatively useful. There's some interesting things about academic measures that I want to highlight. I think that's probably one of the things that the core folks kind of hang their hat on is like their growth metric. So I thought it'd be a good time to take a look at that growth metric and what it looks like for us locally. Now that we do have data in the dashboard, we can take a peek there. Some logistical challenges that happen with that growth metric is to calculate growth for a cohort of students is you need 2 years for that cohort, which creates a few challenges. One being like you have to have matching data for a pretty good chunk of that population, which sometimes kind of doesn't let it populate. So we really worked with them the last week or 2 to make sure that it populated for as many of you guys as possible. The other challenge that is happening for a few folks is if you're a unified district, it's a little bit easier because you have a lot of matching students. Your high school students, you need like to reach back 3 years to get that match between your 8th graders and your 11th graders. But if you happen to be like a high school only district, like you don't have that 8th grade data, so that academic measures, that first line isn't necessarily going to populate for some of you, which is why we thought, all right, let's bring in the metric gap trends and folks can look at that. But I will do one and then the other, and then we'll kind of let you guys explore either one of those. So the I'll open up the site so we can see how we get there, but basically this is what the report looks like. It's a pretty simple growth percentile. This is a really easy one because I just pulled up Tulare County Office of Ed. I'll pull up a few of yours because some of you guys have multiple grades listed on there. But this uses CORE's own internally developed growth metric, which takes prior achievement, current year achievement, a lot of observable demographics that can be tagged to the population of students. And then they decide on a 1 to 100 scale, like where is this group? And so we'll get to the demo in just a second, but from 0 to 100, they basically drop the colors into 3 categories, like green, which is high, which goes from like the 70s all the way up to 100. Orange, which is that mid-level that goes from 30s to the 70s. And then red, which is the bottom 30%, as far as how you compare to the rest of the group, the rest of the population. It's a little different than the California School Dashboard, where they have 5 different color band options. But what I'd like to do now, and I'm probably gonna have to duck out of this presentation, is actually go in and kind of click around a little bit and show you guys what it all looks like. Hopefully you guys didn't have any trouble getting in. But if you open up academic measures, there's 3 things here. We're gonna really focus in on the school report. But if you do go down to the ordered bar charts, especially if you're a larger district, all of your schools will kind of be broken out there. Under network, you'll probably have these 2 options, Core Data Collaborative, which gives you access to like everybody in the collaborative, and Tulare County, which gives you access to everybody here. And so what we can do is pick a district. Let me pick, I'm gonna pick on Cutler. You can select the school level. I'm going to pick overall because that tends to give us a larger option. You want to make sure that you select district overall or high school or what have you. And you typically have a couple of years you can select from. If I pick 18-19, it should give me data. If I pick 17-18, it'll give data for some of you. If you pick 19-20, if that's an option for you, there's not likely going to be anything there because there were no CASP results last year, so there was no way for them to calculate. But what you do get here is some sense of where each grade level is according to that growth metric. So we can see here for Cutler Rossi, I hope you don't mind, Lisa, picking on you, but overall, elementary school, on that growth metric, on that 1 through 100 growth scale, the growth level is at a 52. So that's right, just above average. Middle school is doing very well at 75. And high school is doing extremely well at 94. So good things happening, basically taking the prior achievement of students and really moving them forward. This is a little bit different than just pure performance like you might see on the CASP, which is like if you score well, you get a good score, and if you don't score particularly well, you get a low score. It's like how much did you move? That's what this is measuring. And so you can see that there's a decent amount of movement in the elementary school, and you can see grade level by grade level how that's happening. But in the middle and the high school, you can see that that's really accelerating here. And the nice thing is you guys do have access to the neighborhood, everybody else in the county. You can break this apart by different student groups. And this is in language arts. So if you click over, you can also see how this is working out in mathematics. And if you feel particularly adventurous and you're like, all right, I think I got everything that I need to get out of here, you can go to the ordered bar charts and kind of explore that as well. The little tiles down below basically take the data that is up here in the growth percentile metric, and can basically give you like a little dashboard of what's going on with everybody. The low and the high end give us the error bars, like that's the 95% confidence interval. Basically, it's depending on the population. If you have a larger population, those probably get a little narrower, but you know, that's about where you'd be on a year-to-year basis. So that's the first option to explore. The second option to explore is actually, let me go back, is underneath the on-demand options. There are metric trends, which I think some of you guys will find interesting, which basically take your school, which in this case they put in blue, the overall collaborative in orange, and then Tulare County collectively is in green. So you can kind of see how things are trending. Right now it's selected on chronic absence, but you can pick any one of these different indicators and you can pick any student group. But what I'm asking you guys to check out are the gap trends. And I'm actually going to change this if I can.
Javier, can I just clarify, when you say the overall collaborative, you mean the entire core collaborative, right? So that's the 40
yes.
plus 49, however many districts in the state, right?
Yeah, like that is everybody that is in this. I think that's 10 counties now and several additional districts. So it's a pretty good chunk of the state. Is it a third, Heather?
Yeah, it's about a third. And to clarify the county piece, this is looking at all of our county districts that are currently in core. We don't have everyone in yet, but we have the lion's share of everyone.
Yeah. So looking at the gap trends, what we find interesting about this one is it takes all the years of data that you have. And the nice thing is this doesn't have to match up like 2 years worth of data to calculate a growth metric. It is just like, here's what happened in 16, 17, here's what happened in 17, 18, here's what happened in 18, 19. And it, in this case for chronic absenteeism, like what is that trending like? And right now it's got a certain group selected. So we're looking at the socioeconomically disadvantaged students. And what it does is it calculates it for that particular group as well as the complementary group. Like, so if these are the socioeconomically disadvantaged students, how is it working out for the not socioeconomically disadvantaged? So it always kind of does the, like the two halves or the two chunks, if you will. It's not like we're comparing it to an all group that also includes that group within it. And so you can see that here absenteeism is moving up slightly, even though it's trending downward for the not group. And here's how it looks for all of the schools in Tulare County. And here's how it looks across the collaborative. And down below, you can also see, is the gap decreasing? Is it increasing? And what that might mean. So those are your two options. I will pause for questions. And hearing none, I am going to give you guys a few minutes to quietly explore, knowing that in a couple of minutes, you guys will have a chance to break out with somebody else. I think we're scheduling to get you guys in with the same people that you had the first go around. So you'll get a chance to say hello to them again, and maybe think about like.
Actually, though. Sorry.
What's that?
I said probably not actually, but
all right.
We'll meet new friends. It's fine.
Never mind, new friends. And we have a reflection document. Right now, I would encourage you guys to just focus on exploring. And then maybe in the last minute or two of the exploration time, I'll prompt you to just, what are some things that you're noticing? And if, like, now that you're looking at this and getting a chance to kind of see what it is saying, like who would this be useful to? Like, who would need to see this in your district? In some cases, I think some of these displays like are beneficial for certain folks, but definitely not for other folks. Like, can a teacher make actionable decisions with this? Or is this something that needs to be in the hands of a site administrator or a district administrator? Like, who's the person that's going to best put this to use? And I think that's going to be the lens that I think we're going to start bringing to a lot of this data, just to make sure that we're only looking at the things that are going to be useful to you, and we put the tools in the hands of the right people. I think largely we have way too much to look at anyways. So I think a big part of our conversation is going to be like, how do we just kind of skip towards like just making useful decisions by putting the right tools in the right people's hands. But I'm going to be quiet now for a few minutes. I'll prompt you guys in a few to maybe add some things to the reflection document, and we'll talk again in like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. All right, I'm going to encourage you to, if you haven't already, maybe answer some of those questions in the reflection document. I do want to point out that on the sidebar, the outline tools on the reflection document will pull out a little organizing tool. You can basically click on your district name, it'll jump straight to your page. But each district will have their own page. If there's more than one person from your district here, by all means, please share the document. We'll be revisiting this document throughout the year, just kind of adding to it, building off of things that are brought up. But we just kind of want to see, like, what are some things that you notice about these tools? Like, who might this be useful to, and what could it be used for? So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to think about and maybe answer some of those questions, and then we'll put you guys into breakout rooms. All right. With that, hopefully you guys have some thoughts that you're wanting to share out with somebody. I know it's a lot easier to talk in a breakout room, and you guys can speak candidly with each other, but I'm gonna go ahead and have Heather put you guys into breakout rooms now, and just have a chat with somebody, and what you liked, what you didn't like, what you noticed, where this might be useful. But I think that's kind of our thing that we want to try to key in on, is where would this be useful?
All right, we will see you guys back in about 10 minutes. All right, are we seeing a Tableau page? Yes, all right. So this link is in your agenda. Someone can also put it into the chat. Basically, we found all this UC data and decided to kind of dive into it and see what the trends are in our area. This includes Tulare County and Kings County schools. So we wanted to look at, you know, what are the trends over time in the number of applications to the UC system? We've got 10 years worth of data here. Here we've got applied, admitted, and enrolled. So over the past 10 years, we can see the number of students who've applied, admitted, and enrolled. If you hover over, it'll give you the actual number. If you select a bar, it'll just isolate that 1 year so you can see the trend for that year. There's also a trend line that shows you if things have been improving or not. We know there's been a big push to try and get more kids to apply over the years. So that was a big part of why we wanted to look at this to see, you know, is that happening? How is that going? We do intend to add DSU data to this. Hopefully we will have that for you next time. But at the moment, here's the UC data. This is system-wide. This is not by university. So through the whole UC system, these are the application trends. So on the side, you can select different student groups. These student groups, it's limited to only the ones that were in the UC data. So that's why there's only a couple of them. And if you don't have any applications from that student group in the UC system, then it will sort of white everything out just so that you're aware. Here you can select your high school, and similarly to the ethnicity group, the only schools that will appear on this dropdown are schools that have had students apply to the UC system over the past 10 years. So again, this is applied, admitted, enrolled. Obviously, you know, there's a bit of a leak that happens between the number of students that apply and eventually enroll. We did want to call out AROSI. I don't know if Lisa is still here, but as we were putting this together, we noticed that there's this incredible upward trend over the past 10 years, that they've made some really great strides in getting more students to apply to UC. Started out at 14 back in 2010, and last year there were 79. So we just sort of wanted to give some props to Orosi High School for the good work that they're doing to keep this trend going up. And over here we have some tabs that will take you to another dashboard. This dashboard looks at two different questions. So this first ring looks at the percentage of students who are graduating UC CSU eligible. So these are the students who have done the work to get their A through G courses completed. They're the ones that are eligible to actually apply to the UC system or the CSU system. So we were wondering, you know, how many of our students are actually meeting those eligibility requirements. So as we can see in this case at Orosi High, there were 217 total students who graduated, and of those 217 students, 59% graduated UC CSU eligible. And again, if you hover over, it will give you the actual number of students. Okay, there we go. Down below, you can select a different year so that you can see, you know, has there been a trend? Are more students graduating eligible, or have things started to decline? Over on the second ring, it looks at these students who were eligible. So it separates out the students who were eligible to apply and asks, what happened with those students? How many actually applied? And in this case, 62% of those students applied. And if you hover over again, it's 79 students out of 127 actually applied to the UC system this year. Down below, we can scroll through those statuses of applied, admitted, and enrolled to see like how did this trend? So 62% of those eligible students applied. 36% of those eligible students were actually admitted, and that ends up being 46 students. And then 18% of those eligible students ultimately enrolled, and that ends up being 23 students. So despite the fact that, 46 students, 43 students were admitted, only 23 ultimately enrolled. So we just wanted to sort of investigate these outcomes for our students. You know, even though these students are doing the work to become eligible and to meet those requirements, as we see when we look at applications, they're not all applying. And they're eligible to, they can apply, but they're not putting in their applications. And then ultimately, even fewer actually end up enrolling. So we hope you guys can just use this to sort of investigate your system and start asking those questions about, you know, what can we do to increase the number of eligible students? What can we do to increase the number of students who applied? Because there's likely many students who could be admitted to a UC who just simply are not applying, and what are those reasons? And I just want to note this little fact about the UC data that schools with fewer than 5 applicants aren't shown, and any student group that has 3 or fewer students admitted will also not be shown. So that applies to these filters that you select on the first page. So the intention is you'll select your student group, you'll select your school, and then sort of explore both dashboards to see what they both say. So we wanted to give you all some time to explore this on your own, maybe about 5 minutes. So I'm gonna stop share and be quiet for a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and just ask. Otherwise, we'll pick up again in about 5 minutes.
So I have a question. We met with UC Merced and they're doing some data analytics with us, and they definitely didn't have this beautiful presentation. And we actually wanted to see something all the way back to 2010, and this is great.
Oh, cool.
What was the treasure trove that you gathered this from, Javier and Heather?
I can put that in the chat. Actually, there's quite a few dashboards with, you know, like spreadsheets full of information on this. So I will.
That would be fantastic, because I'd love to share that, because yeah. It was very timely. Got to see what UC Merced had and their team, and then
the only thing with this, the only thing with the source of this data is that it's just in tables. It's not visualized, so you just get just.
No, and that's fine. I think that was one of the things they were looking for. They weren't looking for it. They said they'd had a whole bunch of other data sources they needed to bring together, but. I really like how this looks. I'll be presenting this to the boss of the bosses.
Oh, great. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that UC table goes back way further than 2010.
We just had to submit it.
We just kind of scoped down to the last 10 years, but and it will go and break things down campus by campus, and give you more additional data.
We intend to add that layer of visualization coming up, the by campus data. And as I said, add in the CSU data, because these students are UC and CSU eligible. So the fact that they're not applying to UC, it might mean that they're just applying to the CSU. Or if they're getting admitted into UC, they might not be going because they chose to go to a CSU instead. So we want to compare those numbers and see, you know, how many students are we actually losing to this system as a whole.
Now, is it possible to break this down into, I'm looking up at the little filter on ethnicity, but is there something I'm missing for the possibility of looking at it for EL population?
The UC information doesn't have it broken down like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I figured it, especially back in the olden days, they wouldn't have gathered much of that information. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So if we could ask you to sort of return to that document that we had you in earlier with the 3 questions. I'd like you to answer those questions again, but for this information. Like Mike was saying that he's going to take this information to the boss of bosses. We'd love it if you could share that in the document with us so that we know how you intend to utilize this, what you're seeing in it, and what it means for your system in your context. So if we could take maybe just 2 minutes or so to fill in some of that information. All right, I think we're going to try and put you all into some breakout groups to sort of discuss this information as we were just doing amongst the larger group. We're just going to take about 5 minutes and then we'll bring you all back. So if you have any trouble in your breakout room, please return to the main room. Since we can't go out to breakout rooms, if anyone has anything that they want to share, any questions that they want to ask, please feel free to unmute and talk to the group.
I just want, I guess I can throw in my two 2 cents about it. I, you know, with my counseling background, love seeing this visualization. I mean, I think it's just a great opportunity to start those conversations and really be able to like, is this a focus? Are we going to dig in here? And we all have our own assumptions of why the numbers look this way. Oh, well, UCs are expensive, or this or that, the other. The kids don't want to have to do the insight questions. Whatever those things are, maybe we should, you know, have an opportunity to look at this data, investigate a little further, and really get to the bottom or the root of what's happening here. Maybe look at certain districts who have some success in that area and start to, you know, ask some questions about maybe their systems and what they might be doing to help make our kids feel like, you know, it's the right campuses for them. So it's just, again, I think this is where we have an opportunity to see where data can really help us make some informed decisions with our work.
And I believe through CCGI, you can actually get a list of students who've applied, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, you know, once a counselor has that list, they can start, you know, honing in on those kids and seeing, you know, what's standing in your way, what can we do to support you, and ultimately getting a list of students who were admitted, like, okay, what's it going to take to get you there? Can we help in any way? What's the barrier that you're up against? And all of that can be informed by just knowing your trends, you know, knowing what kind of decline we see or what kind of decrease we see as students apply, admit, and enroll.
And I think that's what this group, the opportunity is there for, when you're looking at something like this, saying, you know what, I would like to see this as well, or this would help me if I could have this data to compare to. And with you being able to look at it and figure out what data you need to help your projects and your systems, then it can help us to bring that to you.
Right.
So I did put that share doc back into the chat, just in case, if you guys can take a moment, if you haven't already, to sort of answer some of those questions.
We're excited about this particular project and adding to it. So it's nice to see it kind of catch your interest as well. Because, you know, I know time is limited for everybody. And so for us to know that, like, all right, like there is an audience for this particular data, that's a motivator to kind of keep carving out the time to keep putting into this. Because I think this is part of the story that we're all kind of challenged with, particularly all of you folks that have high schools in your district. It's the, you know, where do kids kind of leak out of the pipeline? Like what do the pathways look like while they're in the classes? And when they get there, like, are they exercising their options and doing what's available to them? You know, what choices are they making? Like, this doesn't answer why they're making those choices, but it certainly kind of raises questions as to, like, well, why are they making those choices? You know, that's something we can investigate further.
Yeah, that was one of the things at our discussion with UC, and was, oh, well, we've got Reedley College right here. So even though we had a lot of, you know, over 200 applying and getting accepted to the UC system, we had a small number that actually enrolled. And it's like, you know, do they have to work? I mean, that's going to be something that our high school is going to have to approach. And so that they can identify that earlier on than when just after they've enrolled, and whether they, where do they go? Because what a great opportunity. What a great opportunity. And we want to find out how many went to Reedley College, and then maybe they did go back to the UC.
And that data is in that UC information, those tables there. If you kind of go down the list of the tabs, there's transfer information on there as well. So again, we want to layer in more information to this, but this is just, you know, the little piece that we've started with. We hope to continually revisit this as we all meet.
So that's my request, transfer information.
All right, duly noted.
So I think, you know, this group, one of the goals of this group, and we already obviously are starting this conversation, is just to really try to address some of the important issues that are facing our schools in the region. And adding more data tools doesn't always bring coherence, but we're hoping that if we can, you know, look at what your goals are and focus around those goals, that we can, again, bring some systems to you where the data can work for you. So in an attempt to help to narrow the scope of the efforts and spend some time figuring out which tools to use and in which context, you know, we're hoping that you can revisit that shared document again and kind of help to inform us of where you want to go with this work. Because not every tool, and certainly not one tool, is going to solve all of the challenges that we're facing. These tools cost not just money, but they cost your time, thought, and often the frustration. And there are people, you know, who are your data leads sometimes that, you know, we're working so hard on getting these systems up and running and people may not be utilizing them. So again, if you could just take a moment to look at that shared document and sort of share some of your district goals, what buckets you are currently focusing on and where you'd like to see some system changes.
And also who from your district should probably be in this room for our subsequent meetings, if you can think of anyone who we should probably add to our list and invite.
Right, this is a data, you know, the secondary data work group, but it is really about what the data can do. So it would be helpful to get your feedback on who should be in the room.
That happens. All right. So as you guys are typing that up, I'll kind of take us down the home stretch and give us some quick updates. We have a few things that we wanted to share with you guys, put on your map, but I think the most important thing for us is just getting the feedback from you all, making sure that the substantial cost and time, that the expense and time that it takes to actually come to this meeting and attend is worth it to you. So please let us know like what your big goals are, like what is the thing that we can keep coming back to, that we can keep addressing, and hopefully turn this into a work group that is working on something together. Some updates. CORE has their monthly convening. The last one was just last week. Some of you guys might have had a chance to hop in for a second. They tend to like show a lot of like new data. Like the thing that they shared most recently is this updated how have grades been administered over the last few months that I think some of you guys have access to. We can certainly revisit that if need be, but we thought that what we shared today was a little bit more pertinent. But next one's coming up October 29th, and then you can see the rest of the schedule there. I do believe that they're still planning on having a conference, although I don't know that I've seen a date for that yet. It will be virtual. The registration link will actually register you for the whole set there. So I think you only have to register once and you'll start getting the email updates. And I also think that they do record these. So if you happen to miss one, you can always go back and check later. On the 6th and 7th, which is next week. Lori, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say all of those registration links are on your agenda.
Thank you. On the 6th and 7th, the California Assessment Conference is coming up. It's an event that's targeted a little bit more towards teachers, but if you have questions about LPAC, the CASP, all the things that are coming up about them, the different tools, the tools for teachers site that they just put out, all of that's going to be covered there. I know some of you guys are probably already registered. The county is actually sponsoring about 50 different folks from around the county to attend. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. Coming soon, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the name of Stephanie Evergreen, but her website is linked in the agenda. We don't have specific dates yet, but we have ongoing conversations with her about bringing her out and having her present her workshop here. So we're targeting February, March. Right now it's looking virtual, mainly because of the conditions that we find ourselves in. If it is virtual, then it'll be like a series of shorter kind of segments spread out over many days. If for whatever reason we are able to host it live, then it'll probably be like kind of a more standard in-person workshop. But like I said, right now it's looking virtual. But her stuff is really great. And I think it's something that would have a lot of interest for you guys. We also had a question that maybe you can respond in the chat, which would be preferable to you, option 1 or option 2. We know that these last few months have been a lot about like uploading data into the core dashboard. But as far as like getting up to speed and like using the core dashboard and like getting the word out to the people in our districts, we had questions. Heather and I had kind of initially talked about doing like a series of shorter kind of targeted, looking at one tool and just every couple of weeks kind of showing another one and having people kind of attend that, which has the byproduct of like, we can have like these short videos that can be served up on YouTube or what have you. Would that be preferable, or would it be preferable just to have like a big to-do similar to what we had on March 4th when Dave and Latoya came out, but I guess with the option of like now your data is actually in the dashboard and there's things to look at, and then thinking about how this percolates out through your system, who else in your district also needs to know. Many of you guys have already submitted to us a list of people to give logins to. I'd be willing to wager that very few of those folks have actually logged in. So if the intent is to get people to like look in there and use it, like what would they be using it for? And then how do we kind of get the ball rolling on that? So, and if you're like, I have a better idea, like those 2 options are not what I would do, share that as well. Some other things, if equity is on your radar in your sphere, TCOE does have an equity conference coming up January 21st. You can see the speakers there. Jamila Lysakat, author, is the keynote on, I think, in the morning. And then Father Greg Boyle from Homeboy Industries works with folks that had been incarcerated and getting them back as productive members of society, working, is the other keynote. So details on the flyer there. TCOE also has the Learning and Leadership Forum ongoing with Pat Greco. If you guys have been participating in that work, I'm sure that this will be of interest to you. And then coming up again next week, a series with Dr. Gorski, Disrupting Inequities. If you are working on equity in your district, this might be of interest to you as well. Am I leaving anything out, Lori and Heather?
Nope, looks good.
All right.
I just wanted to add about the training. We're really envisioning this as a chance for you all to learn how to use the dashboard, and whoever comes to this training to really learn it, and then to be able to disseminate that information out and help be ambassadors for this effort, because it's huge. We're trying to get it to all of our districts and all the people in our districts. So we need your help. So we just want to kind of reiterate that focus that we want to train you so that you can train others. So keep that in mind as you consider which option you would prefer and who you would want to bring to this.
Yeah. And stepping back from that, even just one kind of step, we know that there are lots of stores of data. Like we looked at the core dashboard, you know, we have this UC thing that we found, and from that UC thing, we're kind of building our own thing. You guys have your SIS, you guys have all these different places to go to for data. Like that is not easy. And so I think that is another thread that I think we'll have to kind of keep revisiting, is how do we build some coherence into all of these different data systems and all of these different places to look for data, so that we can start organizing what that all is and who should be looking at it. Because I think right now, just the sheer volume of data and all the different cubbies that data kind of comes in is tending to overwhelm the system rather than inform. So that'll be kind of another ongoing conversation. Now with that, our next meeting with this group is October 28th. Please mark your calendars. We want to thank you guys for joining us. And if you guys have any lingering questions, thoughts, or topics of conversation, we will hang around here for a few minutes. Other than that, thank you guys all for joining us today, and we'll see you guys soon.